This is Pod Populi.
Podcast for the people.
Welcome, everybody, to Tammy Tuesday, the podcast of life, love, and purpose. I'm so happy you're here, and I'm more excited to share my guest with you. She is a dear friend, soul sister, Jessica McPhaul. She does so many things. Among some of them are boss lady, owner, founder of Naked Rebellion, which is an incredible company that she's grown from the ground up with her hubby. And she's also a professional and celebrity stylist. And she's been in all kinds of Hollywood films, and she is the real deal.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for being here, Jess. I'm so happy you're here.
I'm so excited to talk with you about this. It's been, I feel like it's been a long time coming. I've been so proud to be a part of witnessing your transformation and journey into this. So being here is awesome.
Oh, good. Well, it's funny because you were kind of at the beginning of when things started to really change for me. Mm-hmm. And that's when we first became friends. And it was very clear. It was very immediate, okay, soul sister. We had an immediate connection.
Yeah.
And we got into really deep, in-depth conversation about really meaningful things, which is so refreshing, especially given the business that I had been in previously. I wasn't getting a lot of that. And so when I found someone that I could connect with on a soul level and a real level, that's one of the things I love most about you, Jess, is you're just so real and genuine, and you can feel it from the second you meet you. And I genuinely appreciate that about you.
Well, thank you. I mean, I have no filter, so I feel like sometimes that gets me into trouble, but yeah.
No.
That's for sure who I am.
Well, that's the thing that I like, though, because I'm all about just keeping it real. And you're also really funny. And I love to laugh. And you are so just naturally have the most fun, lighthearted humor. And you just find things funny. That's how Eric is.
Yeah.
You guys are very similar that way. You just think things are funny. So you say it, and then all of a sudden everybody's laughing just because it's hilarious.
Well, now you feel like I'm on the spot. Now I'm not going to be funny at all. But no, I mean, if you can't take yourself too seriously, right? There's nothing like a good fall to make me laugh. There's things are funny. So we can laugh at them.
Exactly. Stop taking everything so seriously,
totally.
Right?
So, yeah.
Well, I used to be very serious. I mean, I still am goofy and dorky and people that know me, but now I'm like, who cares? I mean, let's just get down to it.
Totally.
Let's get real.
Right?
So I appreciate people like you in my life because it makes it easy for me to be more that way. And now that I'm more in it, it's just, I understand it.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I think that's also you and I are both stubborn Capricorns, right? So I feel like we have that ability to cut through any BS. Mm-hmm. And so we're oh, let's just cut straight to the chase and get really deep. And so sometimes I'm well, people don't want that from you. Chill out, girl. But I don't have another tone it down. I'm just all in.
Yeah, I know.
So we just go deep.
Well, that was another thing that we realized very quickly. We're both Capricorns, and we are Capricorn to the core.
Yeah.
Both serial entrepreneurs, hard workers, go-getters, overachievers, all of those things.
Yes.
So obviously that was another kindred spirit quality that we shared together immediately, which we could appreciate. But it was nice too, because I just remember when we were getting to know each other in the beginning, it was okay, so I get you, I see you, you're like me. So how do you see this and how do you deal with that? And it was just genuine conversation. And again, just an instant closeness. So I love it. But the thing that's been the coolest is seeing us transform, because obviously we both, since we've known each other, there's been a lot of things that have happened.
Yeah.
And it's been really cool because we've gotten a chance to talk about it. That's why, like you said, it's been kind of a long time coming. Because I told you when I was starting this whole thing, and I said, well, you're going to be on the podcast. You're like, done. Just tell me when.
Yeah, done.
And so now finally the time has come. So I'm just excited. And there is no directive of this conversation. We always have the coolest conversations just because we just kind of click and see things similarly. So one of the things I want to start with, first of all, I want to just kind of give you some strokes first, because some of the things that you've done in your life as a Capricorn and as a very driven, successful person and woman, you've created such cool things. And I always talk about how we're all creators, and you have truly created some really incredible things.
Thank you.
I want to talk about your background a little bit because it plays into, I think, where you are and where you're going. For sure.
Totally.
So start with just giving everybody listening a little bit of background on how you got into, first of all, costume design, where it started, because that is the coolest story. Yeah. And then how it's turned into the brand that you've now built and this successful business and where it's going. Just give us some grassroots of it a little bit.
Okay, I'll try to do like a Cliff's Notes because I feel like there's been so many like twists and turns of it. But
it's a lot. But
so I grew up in Arizona, and I always felt like I didn't fit in. Like there was always like something more I was craving, like something, all the buildings were built in 1970. It felt like I was like, I need a little more history. And I was an art kid.
I mean, the 70s aren't old?
I mean,
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
But you know what I mean? Like, yes. I'm like, some schools are built in 1900. Like, let's go there, And in the art room, I was given like freedom to just like be me for the first time, like in a high school art classroom. So it was the first time that like I would ditch class and go just to the art room. Like I wouldn't leave school. Like I was just go paint, like such a nerd. But that was like my kind of like awakening into like, who do you, right? Like it gave me permission to be myself.
Yeah. And painting was the medium at that time?
Totally. And I didn't know that's what was happening, right? Like I'm not emotionally aware enough at 15, 16 years old, but I like knew that was the feeling that I needed to like keep chasing, right? As like a level. And one time in that art class, someone came to give a presentation on fashion school. And I was like, that's a job? Like, what do you mean, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, it's called merchandising. You can dress the windows. I'm like, somebody gets paid to dress windows in a store? Like, I'm sorry, what's more me? So then it was like, oh, I need to go somewhere else. So I went to Arizona State for a hot second and was like, yeah, I can't do this. I think most people would feel comforted in the fact that anywhere I walked to class, I saw someone I knew, but I was like, I need to be out of here. I can't see people I know.
Yeah.
So I unenrolled at ASU and I didn't tell anybody, and I enrolled at FITM in LA and applied for scholarships and all the things and financial aid, and was like, great, you're in, here's your ability portfolio. Like did all of this like doing finals and like didn't tell anybody.
You mean when you say not anybody, nobody? Not even your family?
Nobody knew. And so I was living in the dorms, and
Why was it so private?
I think because my family, like not so much my parents, they were pretty encouraging like as parents, but beyond that, like their parents and extended, it was very much like you need to do something to make money and to pursue another agenda. Like it was never like, hey, we see you and we see you're really good at this. It was like, oh, you can be smart, so go be a nurse, go be a doctor, go be a something. And I was like, if you want me taking care of you, it's not going to end well for either of us.
They weren't embracing the fact that creativity can actually lead to
correct. Like painting, you can't ever make money there. Like the arts are not where you can make money.
So many people, especially of older generations, have that thought.
And what's funny is I come from a family of entrepreneurs, but it's like construction, architecture, like a cookware company. Like it's very tangible, like everyday thing. So it was never like, oh, that girl that paints or like really is good at clothes. That's frivolous, right? There's no career in that.
Yeah.
So I think I felt like I couldn't, if I told anyone that's what I wanted, it would have been shut down. And then the Capricorn in me would have like
done what they said.
Right. Like either believed it or then been so mad about it that it wouldn't have ended well. So
got it.
Well, now noting that what I just said is that I got accepted. And so I was living in the dorms. And so this is December of that year, the first like semester of school. And I call my mom and I'm like, hi, it's Wednesday and we have to like school's done on Thursday.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hi, I unenrolled. I'm moving to LA. Do you want to come help me move out of the dorm? And she was like, what are you saying? I'm like, no, that's what I'm doing. So you either can help me or I can do it by myself. And so she showed up, bless her heart. Mm-hmm. She wouldn't say a word to me. Oh, she moved me out of the dorm together. And then I like stayed at her house through Christmas. And December 27th is my birthday. And I turned 18 on the 27th. My mom still wouldn't speak to me.
You weren't really speaking?
No.
At all?
No. And like her extended family would like wrote me letters, like birthday cards and Christmas cards that were like, you're ruining your life. You need to be a pharmacist. You're throwing away everything you threw. I had a scholarship at ASU. Like you threw away everything, like zero support. My parents, my mom's, even though she was mad about it. She still like I could tell she was still supportive. Right. And my dad was the one that was like, she's got to go. Like she's got to go. Let her do her thing. So I moved not knowing a single person and drove myself to LA. Again, like that's when like you had to print out MapQuest directions, right? There wasn't like GPS in a car or your phone. Like just turned 18 and left. And so I went to fashion school.
That's so brave.
Yeah, it really is. And like
so
crazy
brave.
and a little delusional. And so maybe that's also been like a great guiding light in my life of like, oh, I can do it. I've made it easy in my head, so I can go do it now.
You probably didn't realize that's what you were doing at the
I
time.
did now that like I'm studying more of like who I am and how I operate. I'm like, I can see you've done that your whole life. You've really oversimplified things, but it could have been very scary. But I was like, no, we're good.
And
Let's
I
go.
have to say something. Being a Capricorn, that's really unique. Yes, driven, and when that train's going, ain't nobody stopping it.
Correct.
So that is Capricorn.
Yeah.
But the energy behind saying, I'm taking a leap, I don't know, because Capricorns are such planners.
Yeah.
Typically, I'm not stereotyping Capricorns.
Yeah.
I mean, we all are what we are, but still, that is a common trait in a Capricorn to be more planned out and calculated. And you were like,
We'll do it.
I'm going. Here I go.
And I think my plan has always been like, it's been like a Cliff's Notes, I guess. It's been like, so if you do that and you do that, then you can make it work. Like, I know that if it's on me to do the work, it will happen. Right?
You always
like,
trusted yourself to get
totally.
it done.
Like, if
True independence.
Like, totally. Like, if you had money to invest in a person and you were to do it in me, we would make money back. I can guarantee you. Right? Like,
That's how I feel. I totally can relate to that.
And
feeling.
so, like, I was like, no, I'm betting on me.
Yes.
Like, I'm not going to let me down.
Right.
So it's fine. It's not scary.
No. Well, yeah.
And I mean, it is, but like
Yes, I know
that's
what you
like
mean.
that little line of delusion that
But you have this level of trust in yourself.
totally like. I know that if it's on me to succeed and to fulfill the thing, it will get done. I was imagine me as a group project, like right, like that's always been me. Anyway, so that wasn't a Cliff's Notes version, but that's how we got to LA. So then I went to fashion school, and I knew that I could. It was like it's an 18-month program. And I was in there and was like, oh, I really like costume design. And that was like an advanced degree. And so I would have had to like apply and do more school. And I was like, your girl can't afford anymore. Like, we just got to get working. And back then you were able, like Craigslist was like a job search. It wasn't like a creepy place like that it is now.
Yeah.
And I was just on Craigslist, like, I got to get a job. And so I was interning at a retail store that's now not even a brand. And I was in charge of like the stylist and celebrity relations that would come in and pull. And I was like, oh, this is a job. Like every little turn I took was like, wait, people are making money doing this. This is amazing, right?
You're like, this is stuff I would love to just do because I like doing it.
Yeah. And so randomly on Craigslist, while I'm interning, someone posted, I need an assistant costume designer on a movie, which like never happens. Like it doesn't happen, right? That's
Well, it was truly meant to be.
totally. But like, that's so unreal. Like that doesn't make any sense.
Straight out of a movie,
And
right?
so and you have to have like, I must have been on right when they posted because I was the first person that emailed. Like it doesn't make any sense that this is
Okay,
how
but
it
I got to
happened.
stop you for a second
Okay.
because I'm such I understand so much of the energy behind manifestation. And to me, when I hear that, even back then when you weren't necessarily aware it was happening, you were saying yes to the universe and it was coming right to you. It was just, you were attracting it and it was a match. And so everything was just lining up.
Totally. And I was so grateful to my parents that I lived a life that like allowed me to believe that too, right? Like I didn't have a lot of like, I grew up in a very like nice, easy life in Arizona, right? Where it was like anything that I wanted to happen, I could make happen. Mm-hmm. And so it felt like the world was my oyster. Mm-hmm. And I'm so aware of the privilege that is, right? Growing up in that environment. And I'm so grateful because it truly led to, I didn't know at the time was manifestation for sure. But I was like, oh, I'm betting on me. It'll happen. It's going to happen. It all comes to me. And it did and has. And so I'm so grateful for that, like, you know, I think people can call it delusion. They can call it manifestation. They can call it whatever they want to call it, right?
Yeah.
But it's just that,
perspective
like,
anyway.
Yeah, perspective and like belief into like something bigger than me.
Right.
Which
well,
is,
like even like you said, when you were saying all that, you said, I always knew it would just come to me.
Yeah.
You already knew it.
Yeah.
And so that's why it was coming to you. For sure. You knew it. You believed it.
For sure.
And so it was happening. Okay, so this post comes and you're like, oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So then what happens?
So I go and like, what have you done before? And I'm like, oh, nothing. I'm just finished school. Like but I'll do anything, right? Like I don't care. I've got zero ego.
You're like, put me to
don't
work.
care what the job is. Figure it out. And it was, which is so
zero ego. That's
and like
huge.
knowing what I know now in that costume design world, like it is so impossibly hard to get in because you have to do. Like you have to know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. You have to work at least 30 days or it's like however, I don't know what it is now, but back then it was you had to have at least 30 days on a union project to turn union, right?
Real, yeah.
Or the only other option which is somehow the gift that the universe gave me, is that if you are on a non-union project, it can flip union and you can get all of your days that way to get into the union. So we're filming and all of a sudden I get to work one day and like a very seasoned hairstylist, thank God for them, was like, oh, honey, you don't go in your trailer right now. And I was like, why? We got work to do. And he's like, no. We're flipping union. And I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Like, tell me what that is.
Yeah. And he's like, no, that's what you want. Like, that's how you get health insurance. That's how you get benefits. That's how you get paid more. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm making $150 a day. I'm living like a king, right? Like, it's all perspective too.
Totally. That's
I mean,
what I love.
full like intern level pay that I was getting, but it was like amazing for me. And he's like, no, but you got to figure out what job you want to have. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, costumes has two different worlds, the designer and then the costumers, which are all the people that work on the set. He said, but if you want to keep working, you need to join as a costumer because every job will only have one designer, but it could have up to 10 costumers. Oh. So if you want to keep meeting people and working, join in this union. And I was like, say less. And so I did. And so I got enough hours and that
person came right at the perfect time. It's like, hey, wait. Let me just give you a little tip.
Totally. Like it was like a full, like,
that's like a, wow.
It was crazy.
Oh my gosh.
And so
this is so cool.
It's crazy. And so I got to join the union and I was the youngest person to be in the union at that time.
Wow.
And I also was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, right? Like this, usually you have like lots of job experience to get in this. So anyways, very, again, non-clips version of this. I kept saying yes. I would get to any union thing I could. I would try to meet anybody I could and say yes to every job. Some of them were absolutely terrible and some of them were great. But kind of the beauty of it is that I always was like an entrepreneur because no job was ever long. So I was always like it was always like, it's a gig economy. So like I never had a real job. Right? Where like you sat long somewhere and it was long term.
And you climb the ladder. You were just shifting.
Yeah, shifting. I mean, like you could climb ladders like job to job, but it was never like historically the same people, the same whatever.
Right.
And if you got lucky enough and you like vibed with some designers and some teams, and those teams kept working together. And so I was very lucky that I got to be on some jobs that, you know, crews that kept going together. And then some TV shows that kept multiple seasons. And so that felt like a long-term job, which also was crazy.
Right. Such an interesting industry.
It totally is. But it let me realize like a lot of my skill sets is like I'm very good at building the plane while flying it. And so like if you're like, okay, we have 3 hours, right? Like straight up Mission Impossible style. But again, it's all clothing related, which again, if you don't know, it sounds very frivolous, but like,
but it's real.
Oh, very. And so like
stressful.
Everything that you say, the first impression, right? Like if you're thinking of the psychology of like telling a story in a movie, so much thought goes into certain colors, certain styles, how much skin would show, like at certain points when a color is allowed it to come into a project.
Wow.
Like
things people have no idea about.
Not at all. So like what we do is dress like psychology, but in character form.
Well, you're building characters through how they're dressing, how they're presented.
Right.
Period.
Totally.
And that paints the picture of who they are as a character.
Right. Which is awesome. So
Which is the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're doing, right? We're storytelling. And that's what we do is the clothes we put on today. Exactly. What story are we telling all day long?
Yes.
Either to ourselves or to others or whatever. So it was a cool thing to like be a part of that. And I got like what feels like a PhD in creative direction, even though it wasn't like for a specific company every single time. But like I got to work with anything from Nike and Adidas to the NFL teams and the NBA teams to giant Emmy winning TV shows and, you know, dance competition shows. Like I got to work on so many different things that it was like, oh, I know how to tell a story.
No matter what it is.
No matter what it is. No matter what the customer is, whatever the consumer is, whatever the product is, like I can sell it and I can build the creative around it.
So you were totally absorbing and understanding and learning how to be completely versatile in this business.
Absolutely.
I mean, you were like, oh, I got this. I know that.
Totally.
You were building your knowledge base and your experience base on, I can do anything.
Totally. And I had no idea what I was like, the groundwork that I was laying for the future.
Right.
Right. Because it just, like you can see, I've never really had like a big plan. But it was like enough of a plan to just let me keep going. So
but you kept rolling with it. That's what kept you going, right?
Totally.
Because you didn't plug in any one thing. You just let it roll.
Totally. And so part of that education and learning that I was in as a costumer, costume designer, I did end up joining both unions eventually, but I got asked to assist like a huge giant costume designer back when like campaigns were like, if you were having an alcohol commercial, like you would spend all the money on a commercial campaign, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas now it's like influencers and affiliate and what, like the buckets are different.
So different.
So back then it was all in a big commercial and it was like millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. So we got paid royally and got to make the most creative, fun, cool things. So I'm working with this super awesome, fun designer and, making creative, great things. And she's like, okay, before the fitting tomorrow, will you go buy some bras? And I was like, that's stupid. Like, we're making like amazing gowns and I'll go buy bras. Okay. So I go into Macy's and I look around and I buy the bras that are there and I come back and to our fitting, the producers are there, everybody is there, right? Like all the big wigs,
all the head honchos.
The people that have spent millions of dollars on this are sitting in this room now. And in walks our fitting, and it's this dance troupe of women from Africa, like the most beautiful women you've ever seen in your life. And I'm like, oh my God, look at the bras I bought. Look at these nude bras I bought. They're for me and for absolutely no one else in this room. And I'm like, this is mortifying. There was not one other thing I could have bought.
The tone was completely off.
It was Caucasian, if you even call it that. Like, right. It was more like a grayish beige.
Taupey, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you would put on like a corpse, right? Like, it doesn't look like a human being.
No.
And I'm like, oh, the industry's called this nude forever, and there's no one doing anything about it. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. So the girls good in their fitting, and they put on these nude bras that I bought that's not nude.
That are nowhere near their skin color.
Nowhere near their skin tone. And they're in these like sexy dance outfits. And so you can see the skin tone difference. And the producer was like, what's going on here? And the designer was like, oh, don't worry. She bought the wrong thing. She won't be here anymore. And I got fired on the spot. And I was like, okay, well, that doesn't exist. And so I had just started dating my boyfriend, who's now my husband. And I was like, hi, two things. One, got fired. Number two, did you know this is going on in the world? Like, I know you don't wear a bra, but like,
this is a real problem.
There isn't one. There is nothing I could have bought today to save my job. Not one thing, no matter what store I went to. And he was like, oh yeah, well, it's just like a Band-Aid. And I was like, oh my God, it is, right? And there was like this whole thesis statement on Kevin Garnett in the NBA playoffs that he had like got a gash on his head. And the trainer went into like the Band-Aids and he had this like giant Caucasian, giant Band-Aid on his forehead the entire NBA playoffs. And it was like, what is happening? This is one of the most insane NBA athletes of all time. And this is what is happening in these products.
He has this huge obnoxious bandage on his head.
Correct. Like all of these products that are accidentally not inclusive. And maybe in my opinion, at that time it was accidentally.
Yeah. I'm
sure it was purposeful, right? Because being inclusive is expensive. I will give you that.
Yeah.
But you can't not represent people or say that one thing is this.
One size fits all.
Yeah, like it just isn't. That's not possible.
No.
So it's
not for the human body. Are you kidding me? In any regard.
No. So it was like, okay, now my husband knows this with me. We can't not know this. Like, we have to do something about this. But, like, we're broke. Just lost my job. Like, what do you do? We're, like, living in an apartment in LA with no money.
That's when you're like, light bulb.
Yeah. I was like, okay, well, we got to figure out how to do this. And so.
Well, so wait, let me stop you. Because in that moment, when you saw this void in the world, really, you thought, okay, were you able to see that that was such a huge gift at the time? Or were you like, what the heck? I'm pissed. Well, I'm just going to fix it. How did you view it at the time? I'm just curious if you didn't have any awareness around that.
Maybe a gift is the right word, but maybe it wasn't like, I don't think that I knew that I was like, oh, you can change something. I think it was more like you can change something, right? Like it's this, and I guess that is
like
a gift.
Take it on. And that was how you rolled anyway. You're
totally.
Like, oh, I'm going to take this on then.
Where it was like, well, keep your eyes open because this is needed, right? Like see what else comes up.
See a need, feel a need, right?
And that was like, I never thought that I could ever like manufacture anything, right? Like as a costume designer, you make ones of things, right? Like one thing on this TV show and it's very cool. Not 100,000. Like I don't have any skill set in that.
At the time.
Right. Which is what I thought. Like they're so expensive. It's not possible. And also like there's no like innovation in that bra world. Like there's only the same bras that your grandma had or Victoria's Secret. And you're like, I hate both of them, but that's all I have.
Just in your time though, there has been a massive evolution on what that looks like.
Correct.
I mean, really.
Correct.
Even
And
just in our lifetime, and because
totally.
we're not that old, but I mean like, there's been a massive evolution.
Massive.
And you've been a part of it for sure. Anyway, keep going.
It's been cool. But I mean, that would have been
what year?
14 years ago that happened. Wow. And so that was when the seed was planted, right? Where I was like, oh, I have to change this. And 14 years ago, we couldn't have pulled it off because the industry wasn't ready for it.
Right.
The money, we didn't have any of that money. And it just wouldn't, it would have been like too early of an adopter, right? It would have tanked. And, the beauty of gig economy, right? So when you get fired from one, no one knows. You just get available and ready on the next one. So the next job I had after that was on Dancing with the Stars, which is amazing and still to this day like one of my most favorite jobs ever. I love that team. They're still there doing it. Like it's my favorite place. But we have all different celebrities and dancers, all different body styles and shapes and colors, and it's a live TV show.
Right.
So every single thing is made in 5 days. Like from idea to execution. It's crazy. You have a workroom of 13 ladies that sit and hand rhinestone and sew it all. I mean, it's amazing.
Wow. How cool to see that come together.
So cool.
That's just such a piece of life that I haven't experienced. It sounds so cool to watch it being created.
It's so creative and beautiful and collaborative and just like, and then it's dance and part of it too. So it's like what we make is in response to the creative of the dance too. So it's like creative gets creative. Gets creative.
It's like a whole collaboration of so many things coming together.
And so where else does that even happen, right? Where creatives actually work together and make something even more creative. Like usually it's like be creative in this box and go. So this was like
totally
no holds
open.
bar. Go to go. Which was cool. And so one thing that we do is that under every dance costume, because it's live, you can't have a nip slip and it has to feel like you're holding in and supported, is that we use a power mesh fabric and we would custom dye it to everybody's skin tone. And so I was sending out all the dye one night to the dye house and I was like, holy shit, I know how to do this.
Light bulb.
I was like, this is supportive. You don't even need a wire. None of the girls are wearing bras when they're dancing. I know
it's part of the costume.
I know what like product to make now. Like I know the fabric. I was like, no one's making a bra out of this right now. This is so crazy. And so it was like, came home again to my boyfriend and I was like, so I think I like know what we're going to make now. Like how, and he was like, okay, like thanks. Good job with this. But like, there's no money here. Like, what do you do? Anyways, more jobs come and I keep working and gaining more knowledge. And I definitely have well over 10,000 hours of fitting all different types of bodies now. And then I was on a TV show in Baltimore for a while. And when that show ended, we had just had our second child. And we were like, what are we going to do? My husband's like, my boyfriend, who became my husband now.
You can call him Jay. We love Jay.
We love Jay. Shout out Jay. And he was like, I love Arizona. And I was like, no, I vowed I'd never go back. Like, I was like, these are not my people. He's like, no, we love Arizona. And I'm like, I just had my second kid. Like, I would maybe that'd be nice to be my family and we'll try it. So he spearheaded our move to Arizona, back to Arizona in 2018. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a year. Like I'll have a good attitude and I won't tell you this is a bad idea. Right. And we'll do it. And at that time we had started a custom suit company because again, another need that showed up that we didn't, we feel like, hey, we can solve this.
Well, now, were you and Jay always in cahoots on what you were working on?
Always. We met on a job, so we've never not worked together.
I love that.
Yeah. So people were always like, how can you do that?
That is so rare. I do understand that. I spent a lot of time with Eric, so I can totally respect it. But it's so unique and really, really cool because clearly you've built some incredible things as a team.
Yeah. I mean, and we just are like, we're yes people for each other too. I mean, we definitely can call bullshit when it's needed, right? I mean, that's marriage.
Well, and you also have always said to me, as we've talked about that specific topic about working together with your spouse, which is hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know when to stay in your lane and you trust the other person in their lane and they trust you to stay in your lane. And that's why it works.
Yeah, totally. And sometimes the lanes can get confusing and then you have to have some like, hey,
course corrections.
Where are we at here? But he knows that like, if I say it's going to get done, it's going to get done. Right. And he's my researcher too. And I am not. And he's my wordsmith and I am not. So he's very
You're
much
the big idea person and he's the executor.
Totally. I mean, he's very insanely creative as well. Mm-hmm. So we get to like have these amazing brainstorm sessions and then like figure out who executes what. And it's a really cool thing to be a part of, and then also like turn it off and be like, oh, we have 3 kids. Like, great. It's a wild experience. But we started the custom suit company because in our own wedding, Jay wanted a white tuxedo jacket and black tuxedo pants. We could not rent it anywhere. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, the idea of renting is so gross. It's fairly expensive, and someone's worn it and likely has like danced the butt out of it, and you're like, this doesn't make any sense. So I was like, well, I know suit vendors. And so I got everybody's measurements and got everybody's suits for less than the cost of renting. And then people were like, oh, do you do our wedding? And we do our wedding. And I was like, oh shit, are we in the wedding business now? Like,
wow.
And I was on a costume designer in House of Cards in Baltimore. So it was a very suit heavy show. So it was lots of suits in my life. And then we moved to Arizona with the suit company again, like nothing else. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to do that, if we're going to like be business people here now and less costume design, because there isn't as much here, I will try to plug into some quote unquote fashion if that exists in Arizona. So
good point. If that exists in
right.
Arizona.
And so
it's not exactly fashion forward.
It's not exactly fashion forward.
It's come a long way, but
right.
Yeah.
And so I Googled, and there is a fashion incubator, if you will call it that, in Tempe that was accepting applications for a scholarship. And I was like, cool, let's apply. So we apply and we win the scholarship.
Of course you do.
I'm like, oh, okay, this is the community that we're supposed to be in. Okay, great, here we go. And the scholarship was not money by any means, but it was access to like-minded people and that kind of like a crash course in how to manage production, which again, I told you I make ones of things, not tens of things or 10,000s of things, right?
Yeah.
And it was incredible to be a part of. And so we win with the suit company and we sit down with them on day one and they're like, we can't make suits out of this factory. And I was like, okay. They're like, do you have anything else that's out there that you want to make? Like, is it a men's shirt? Is it a men's slack?
So just so I'm clear on what they were, they basically were looking for something that you're looking to create.
Correct.
And build and grow on.
Exactly. Okay. They were like,
that's what the incubator was.
It was a 6-month program where we got an office out of it and access to sample making that they can make there.
That's so
And so
cool.
they can help you with patterning and stuff. It's amazing. The company's called Fabric. They are doing amazing things out. They still exist in Tempe. And
I have not heard this story yet.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh, this is how it all started. This is crazy.
You've told me bits and pieces of things, but
and so they sat us down and I was like, I don't really want to have like men's khakis. Like that doesn't excite me, right? Like I need to find the passion in it. And Jay's like, well, Jess has had this idea for 10 years. And I was like, you shut your fucking mouth. Right? Or I was like, this is our thing. Like you don't talk to anybody about this.
Why didn't you want him to talk about it?
I don't know. I think it would have made it real.
Like
totally. It would have made it possible.
He would have been breathing it into existence.
Yeah. Right. Like for me, I only need a little bit to like tell myself that I can do it. So for someone else to be like, do it. It's like,
that was a whole other ballgame.
Do it, right? So Jay's like, why don't you tell what happened to you? And I was like, okay, Jay, thanks. And I tell the story of getting fired and how it doesn't exist. And they were like, well, now you know what you're doing for the next 6 months. And I was like, it's not a thing. And they're like, no, it's a thing now. That's what we do here. So Jay and I, like, we could only afford daycare we had 2 kids at that time. We had a baby and a 3-year-old. We could only afford daycare 2 days a week. So 2 of those days we would like lock ourselves in this basement office with no windows, like nothing. And it was just him and I in there. And I was still nursing and pumping. And it was like a whole thing, like incredibly non-creative. And we did we named the business, started it up, like just him and I in this basement, all the business plan, all the everything. And then I would go upstairs to the pattern maker they had there. And I was like, okay, I've had 2 babies now. I've nursed 2 babies. I've been lots of different sizes in my life. Here are bras I hate. Here are bras I love. Here's the fabric I want to make it out of. Let's figure out how to do this. And that's how we created our 3 bra styles that we still carry to this day. We created there with them. And our house we had in Baltimore had sold. And so the tiny little bit of profit we had is what we put straight into the company to launch all of our patterns and our samples. And the caveat to all of this is that the 6-month scholarship that we won ended with a fashion show, which is insanely backwards for any fashion brand, right? Like you don't you do a fashion show once you are big, not to open.
To promote.
Yeah. Like, not like, hi, we're here now. So I was like, this feels so weird. But so we could only afford samples, one of each skin tone. And I had to make sure that I would make one in all sizes, like depending on the skin tones, right? And then I had to find models to walk in this lingerie show for a brand they've never heard of. Like, okay, like for no money. Great. Thanks. You want to be a part of this? It sounds glamorous, right? People said yes. Thank God.
Yeah, of course.
And I was like, okay, well, I have no branding. I have no market. I have nothing, right?
At the time, you already had the name though.
We had the name, but I didn't have like imagery because we only had samples. So I knew that we had a fashion show launch of our business.
Just so we know, the brand name for people that are listening that do not know, it's called Naked Rebellion. So you can look it up. It's amazing. Keep going.
NakedRebellion.com. Yeah, I probably should have led with that.
Yeah. That's why I'm like, they're going to be like, what is it? What is it? That's why I had to stop you.
I love it. And our Instagram is naked.rebellion. So you can find us there too.
Love it.
But so I knew I would have a fashion show and launch this brand to the world at like 6 p.m. or whatever. So I asked all the models to come at 4 and do an hour and a half of a photo shoot because I had no imagery. Mm-hmm. So I begged one of my like amazing photographers that lives here that I've worked with on bigger things. And I was like, please just do this for me. Like I have literally no money, but I need photos. And those photos are still what we use to this day. They're still beautiful. Like it's one of our logos. Like it's become a thing, and they're amazing. And these girls are not models. I mean, some of them have become since, but they look like
they're real women.
Real women. Some of them can model. They can take an amazing photo. That's for sure. Like it's incredible. And then they walk down the runway, and I was like, oh shit, we have a business and people want to buy this, and we had nothing to sell.
So what happened when that happened? Because like you said, you presented something that doesn't really exist yet.
I found I got connected to a factory that would do really low minimums in LA. Like we're talking across 9 skin tones. We have 6 sizes. We go from small to 3X. We had 3 bra styles. They would let me make 10,000 pieces. Which is it was like 5,000 pieces. I think it was really small, right. But it was still, that's very expensive, right?
Oh yeah.
And so we had that amount left from selling of our house, and we put it in and we placed the order. And this is now, so that would have been July of 2019. So we placed the order. I went to go pick it up. It takes that long for a factory. I picked it up in February of 2020. So now we know where we're going with this.
Yes.
And I'm in LA, and I'm like, oh my God, all of our life savings are like in my car in these boxes, and I'm rear-ended.
Oh,
I have to go. I was in LA also to speak at USC and like sell this stuff.
Oh my God.
And I rear-ended, and I was like to the tow trucks are there, and I'm like, can I still drive this car? Like I can't get another car.
I have to go.
And I have to speak at USC in the morning. Like, what am I going to do? And they're like, okay, let's get all this. Like, they rig it all closed. So I can't even open. I can't open my driver door, and I can't open.
So you were running pretty bad.
It was like the car got messed up.
It wasn't just a fender bender.
No, it was like one car that hit more cars that hit more cars.
Oh,
so it was like both sides of my car, right?
Oh.
And I wake up, but I'm fine, thank God. Right. But my car is not okay. So I wake up the next morning, and I go to speak at USC and to like sell the stuff. I crawl out the driver window.
Oh my God, I love this story.
Who are you? Right? This makes no sense.
You're amazing.
And I try to go through the windows and like pull random things that I can sell, because I've never even sold the stuff before, right? Like I've never done anything. So it's like a totally disorganized, like terrible pop-up. These college girls were like, what is she doing? Like she's a mess. We spoke fine, whatever. And if the thing was over, and I loaded my car back up and climbed back in the driver window and drove back to Arizona. And we opened up when I got home, we unpacked the car and like hobbled it to a guy, and he's like, this car is totaled. How did you drive it back here? And I was like,
had to do it.
We didn't
have
no choice.
Yeah.
And now we're carless, and then the pandemic hits. So it's like, how do you convince anybody to buy bras and underwear?
Right.
In the pandemic, right? Like this brand you never heard of. But yeah, it was wild, and we kept going, and it's been amazing. So as we kept charging through and trying to find new factories and new places to go and new wholesale, and we're so grateful that there's like, right at that time, probably in 2021, we probably had like 10 different stores that would carry us, which was super cool. And we still were online. And we opened our first brick and mortar in Central Phoenix now. We're on 12th and Missouri at the Frederick. We opened that September of last year, which is awesome, in 23. So September 24 is our 1-year anniversary.
Dang, already?
Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
Yeah. And then I'm so excited to say that. So May of this year, we were selected out of 1,300 applicants to top 25 brands in the nation by Macy's and Bloomingdale's. And we were part of their like entrepreneur cohort of like new brands that are things to watch and
up and coming.
Yeah. And so we're now on Macy's.com. You can buy everything there. And we're in talks to go in stores at Bloomingdale's.
I remember, I think we were talking or something. We were on the phone or texting. I don't remember where we were, or maybe we had gone to lunch. I don't remember. But we were texting because you were in New York.
Yeah.
And you're like, it was so crazy because I remember you totally created that opportunity. You literally showed up and it was like, bam, it was Macy's. I remember when Macy's happened and you're like, oh my gosh, this just happened.
Yeah. Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Getting
it's actually a very cool
because it was crazy.
It was so
I was
crazy.
like, what?
So the year before that, so we're in 2022, we go to these wholesale shows where like buyers come and walk through and we like have a booth and we try to convince these buyers to carry us in the store.
Yes.
And I've always gone and just been like, whatever the world throws at us is who we want to work with. We just want to grow. And it was the first year that I was like intentional. And I was like, I want Bloomingdale's. I want Bloomingdale's. I want it. This is 2022.
That's right. This is coming back.
And I wrote it down and I was like, I think this is how you're supposed to manifest. Like, I was like, I don't really know what you're supposed to do. And so we're going and my husband.
You know you've been doing it your whole life.
I know, but
like so big time.
Totally.
Like literally
the Capricorn in me
magic.
is like, how do I perfect it? And how do I make it right?
Oh my gosh.
But so I'm working the booth and my husband's like attending some of the like continuing education classes and stuff about retail and whatever. And he's texting me on the last day and he's like, how's it going? And I'm like, it's been really slow. Like, but I'm a little bit worried, but like, well, we'll see. And this lady walks up to me. She's like super quiet and kind of demure. And I was like, oh, hey, like, let me know if you have any questions. Right? I like hand the thing and just kind of like grabbing it and looking, like not asking me any questions. And I'm like, okay, another person going to walk by.
Looky-loo.
Yeah. And she's like, I think that your stuff would be really great on our site. And she hands me her card. And it's Macy's. And I was like, okay. I mean, I said Bloomingdale's, but like, we'll take Macy's, whatever, that works, you know? I'm like, I'll take it. So we start having these meetings with Macy's in early 2022 to get on their .com platform, which is different than in store. And it's great. And it's like our foot in with them and all of the things. And so they're like, okay, I think you're a right fit. Let's do some onboarding. And here's the contract to sign. And I open it up on DocuSign or whatever. And it says Macy's Bloomingdale's. And I was like, I got Bloomingdale's. I manifested Bloomingdale's and I have the contract. Like, what do you mean? So I was like,
it's amazing.
It's crazy. So that was in 2022.
I remember that. I was like, what are you talking about?
I was like, I don't know if it's possible, but I did it.
I love it.
It's crazy. So it's been cool. And so we are not at Bloomingdale's yet. It's coming. And I want to launch there in stores and have it be a more in-person, you know, as opposed to just a digital experience. So that's what we're working on next.
Well, you already have it. It's just a matter of when it
totally
shows up for you.
Totally. So we're super excited about it. Yeah. And then at this in May, us being accepted to that is totally irrelevant to us already being on their website too, which is like a totally different silo of their business. And
that's like basically two businesses. One's in store and one's online.
Yeah,
totally
and then,
separate, like their own entities.
Totally. And then this is part of their like give back and like paying it forward, which is like their charity arm. So like while it's all one company, it's like very different.
Oh yeah, sure.
And it was incredible. These 25 brands that were in there are just amazing, like doing big things. Anything from, because Macy's owns Bloomingdale's and Bluemercury, like the skincare stuff. So that anything from like tween skincare to bags, like commuter corporate bags, to underwear, to, you know, streetwear was in it. And it was so cool to like learn from these people. And then we all had like a Shark Tank pitch against each other. So it was like Macy's Shark Tank, and the heads of Macy's, Bloomingdale's, and Bluemercury is who we pitched to. And it was insane and terrifying and intense. And we ended up winning an extra $10,000 out of it, which was crazy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. None of it's crazy.
I mean, true. You're right. None of it's crazy, but it is all, you know,
it's amazing.
Welcome it with open arms. It's really cool.
So I remember like that story when I remember we were texting and I was like, you were sending me these pictures of, look at I think you sent me a picture of her card and I was like, what? What's happening? You're like, I don't know.
It's like, I got it, I guess. I don't know what to do now.
And then I remember before that too, like when we started to get a little closer in friendship, And we were sitting down one day over a beer, I think at lunch, and you started telling, you're like, oh my gosh, all the numbers are showing up and I'm seeing all these number patterns. And I'm like, oh girl, just wait, it's coming.
Yeah.
Like it's going to come hard and fast. And you're starting to know it. I'm getting goosebumps when I say this. You're going to start noticing it. And you're like, I know. So we just had this really cool conversation about just things that were evolving in our lives.
Yeah.
And I want to know, like, because we've had some spirited conversations about things that have happened. Are there things that you've been able to see more clearly? Because clearly your awareness around what you've created, Jess, it's amazing. I mean, it is truly miraculous, and you're building your life by design, by just saying yes and taking the leap and trusting, even with not a pot to piss in at times. And you really were just like, I'm doing this. That is so scary for so many people.
It's so scary.
And you do it anyway. And it's such a gift that you and your husband, Jay, are so connected that you just trust together. That's also another huge plus. And I'm sure there's been challenges.
Totally. Well, and it's, I mean, I think we might be in it right now, right? We're like, as you grow, while it's like equally insanely exciting, it's way more expensive and terrifying, right? And there's no one out there is like, you know what sounds awesome? Risking every penny I have and putting everything on the line for that'd be great for my family. Like being an entrepreneur is like not a sane step, right? Like it's not safe at all. And so it's really hard to be like, yes, we're creating a safe and great environment for our family and like cultivating what the future looks like. And then being like, oh shoot, we need to spend $50,000 over there. And you're like, you don't have $50,000 to do. What do we do? I think that is really like this confusing, amazing part of being an entrepreneur. And it does require blind faith. It's not easy by any means.
What do you do in those moments?
I mean, I think we have a business coach who I love dearly, and she's helped us like really be able to articulate and like see each other's strengths as well. Because while Jay and I are very aligned on everything, we're very different human beings and just how we process things.
Yeah.
And she's been able to really help us like, okay, it's the visualization, the manifestation, if you will, right? Like what is the end game? Like what is it that you want?
What does it look like?
Yeah. Like what does that look like? And then it's like, is that 10? Is that 5 years? Is that 8 years? Right. And then it's like, okay. And then it's like the 3 to 5 years and the 0 to 1 and like really trying to figure out like the big overarching picture. And then there's like, when you break it down, you already know the steps to do, right? Like it's all inside of you.
Right.
And so when you like the doubt comes in, then you've pushed all that away. So like I have to make a very conscious effort to not let that go in. Like,
so when you're doing that, do you find yourself breaking it down into steps, or do you find yourself just trusting and living big in the future?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
I tend to live pretty big in the future. My business coach told me I'm an Enneagram 3, which is, if you know Enneagrams, that's it aligns. It's nail on the head for me.
Yeah.
But Enneagram 3s like don't know failure. And it's not like I don't fail and I'm stubborn. It's like it doesn't exist. Like it's just a pivot. Yep. And so it's not that like I have like trained this muscle. It's truly like it doesn't exist to me. And so I
can't see it.
I can't see it. And so like,
well, that's why it never comes to be.
Right. It's like, yeah, I got fired, but it was never about being fired. It's like, there's things that, and so, and maybe that is something like, if that's not intrinsic to you and it's not in my husband, Jay, so there's times where I have to be like, okay, he has to talk this out. He has to go through the worst case scenario to get there. And sometimes it irks me because I'm like, don't say it out loud, right? Like don't bring it into existence, but his brain has to process that way. How terrible could it be? Okay, it's not going to be that. So we're here. And so I'm like, that never is possible. So like, then we can keep going. So we have to like figure out how we communicate in that way. And that's interesting and difficult on itself. But, you know, I feel like adopting this mentality of like, there's no such thing as failure is like a massive, huge thing you can do in your life.
Oh yeah, that is huge. That's everything. That's what's created what's happened for you.
Totally.
Well, it's interesting too when you're talking about your partner in business, you have to be married to. You're having to, and I was just talking about this on another podcast here recently about manifestation and how we view, okay, there's this potential, best, worst, right? Like what's the ultimate beauty? What's, oh crap, we're destitute, right? We're screwed. So it's okay to look at both.
Totally.
Because you have to come back to the center anyway. And when you come, and you're both just evaluating in different ways. You're like, I'm not going to live over here. I see it over there and I'm like, okay, I see you, but I'm just not going to really give you much energy because I see this.
Yeah.
That's all I see.
Totally.
But in order for it to actually happen, you have to come back here. So you're just doing it in different ways.
Absolutely.
And it's cool because, excuse me, you can see that in each other and you have patience with how both of you view it and step into it and embrace it. And that's why it happens.
Yeah.
Because you both come to it in your own way.
Yeah. I mean, we're painting a picture that it's like always very easy and puppies and
No,
rainbows. It's
there's
a
no
very
such thing.
difficult thing to get through. And also like, you know, I think the biggest lesson in all of these like businesses that I've started and ran is that like you're only going to go as far and be as good in your business as you are inside yourself.
Absolutely.
And like with the demons that you want to carry with and any of the baggage that you've packed up is coming with you into every business meeting, every phone call that you have. Like you have to start to process that. And stubborn Capricorn, maybe you were not that way, but I was always like, nah, we're fine. We don't have to deal with any of that. And I was like, no, it keeps coming up. Let's deal with it. Right. And so the working on yourself. And I also used to like listen to podcasts and hear that and be like, you're a bunch of bullshit. Like whatever you're saying, right? Like work on yourself. But it's so true. Like I know that while I would love to listen to a podcast of like, here's how I did it and here's X, Y, and Z steps. And if you followed this, you could do it too. There's help in that, I guess. But the main thing that if you want to succeed in anything that you do, you have to free yourself from any of the preconceived things that are holding you back. And a lot of it's in your subconscious. You don't even know what's happening. And so that has been like a true, like the last 2 years, I've really put a ton of effort into that. And while that doesn't exactly make like fruitful benefits in actual time while it's happening, right?
Moment.
Like while you're working on yourself, that means you're not working on your business a lot of times, right? And so maybe things are slower and it can be a little bit painful and it might cost a little bit of money to work on yourself too with a coach or a guide or whoever it is. But when you come out of that, you're like, holy shit, you're to the races.
Yeah, it's so true.
And so like then you can start to call that abundance mindset in and truly understand what you're saying.
Well, and truly receive it.
Totally.
Being open to receive it because you've cleared out your blocks.
Absolutely.
So, well, that's what the premise of everything we talk about here is. It's all about self-love and realizing that you have to put yourself first.
Have to.
If you don't figure that stuff out that's holding you back from the things that you're trying to get to or the things that you most want to manifest and create in your life, if you don't deal with what's really there, it's just going to keep showing up and keep smacking you. And it's going to keep holding you back until you say, okay, what is it? Let's figure this out. Let's move the energy so I don't have to deal with this block anymore. And then I can actually move forward.
Totally.
And I can actually do and create the things that I came here to do and create.
Totally.
And it's hard for people to remember. I mean, I do it every day. I take a lot of time every day and I say, and shit comes up every day. And I'm like, wow,
like
you're still there. You're still there.
I thought I dealt with that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like you're still there. Oh, well, no, yesterday re-triggered it. Okay,
yeah.
Let's do this again.
Totally.
I mean, it's just constant.
Totally.
It's constant.
And my brain never stops. And I know that there's a lot of people like that too. And I didn't realize that for some people they are able to quiet their mind a lot, but I cannot. And there's just thoughts and talk and things 24/7. So meditation was the most unnatural thing for me, or unnatural, whatever.
Same.
Again, not the wordsmith in the relationship. I was very hard for me to figure out how to quiet my mind. And so my entry into it was always with movement. And so and I didn't know that that's what yoga was giving me, right? I just thought that I was working out, but I was like, oh, you're meditating because you're absolutely not focused on anything except for this 6-foot rectangle that you're lying on, right? So I was like, oh, I understand that that's what that practice is giving me. And then once I was able to like be open to it, I've been able to then like slowly get into more things. And now I have a workout studio that I love in Scottsdale or in North Phoenix called Desert Movement. And they have a class that is their movement plus the meditation at the end. And now that I'm 2 years into this practice, I can work out and get my mind like fully in the clear and lay down for that meditation and drop right in and get like an amazing meditation out, which is a very new thing for me. And it is so exciting. Like I finish it and I'm like, oh my God, I did it again. Like I could actually relax. There were no thoughts. Like that's so crazy. So like it's a very hard, and that took a lot of work for me, which is interesting that for me, that was harder than anything else.
That was the same for me when I very first started to practice meditation, which I was like, that's not possible. I don't know what you're talking about. But then when I started to do it, I also learned in my practice that it's not so much quieting your mind. It's actually inviting your mind to participate. So your mind then is in part of the groove, because once you invite your busy mind in, all of a sudden you're in sync. And that's when you can really drop in, because you're not, again, it's the same thing with anything in our life. The more we resist it, the more harder and stronger it's coming right back at you. So if you're sitting trying to meditate and you're like, I need to quiet my mind. I need to quiet. Just stop. You're basically telling your mind, oh, what are we doing? What are we doing? And it's like a puppy.
Right.
You're like, stop. The dog thinks you're playing.
Totally.
It's really the same analogy.
Totally.
So if you're looking at your mind like, just sit down, or like an impatient 3-year-old tugging at your leg, it's like, just give me a minute. The more you do that, the more they want your attention. So it's like, if you say to your mind, oh, I see you. You know what? Come over here. Check this out.
Right.
Like, come into this with me. And then all of a sudden you're like, your mind, your puppy, your little child, whatever, starts to go, oh. And it kind of just automatically gets into sync with where you're going. And then all of a sudden, that's when the magic happens, and you're fully in it, and you're not even having to think about quieting it, because it's now participating.
Yeah.
And it changes everything.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I was the same way as you when I first started. I was like, meditation is a joke. I don't even know what that is. That's not real for me.
Right.
I get that you can do it, but I can't.
Totally. I had a teacher once that, I'm sure there's lots of teachers that say it, but it's like, just let it be a cloud that passes by, right? And then I had to take it and be like a little more like realistic with it. And so it literally is just like, I can see all of my thoughts. Like, they're like little clouds, right? Like, you can just, it's a cloudy sky, and there's like things going on, and you're like, okay, you're all
there, but it's over there.
You're all here, and I'm seeing you, and it's present, but I'm not, you're just here, and thank you. And that for me was like, I'm able to, like, in the meditation state, be like, I see you. Cool. But like, let's stay here. And it's like, okay. Then like the clouds can kind of sit for a second. So I've acknowledged it. It's here. It's with me.
Yes.
I'm able to like
equanimity,
drop into it.
Yes, exactly.
So it's
cool, because that's one of the things that I say. And it's even people that aren't, like, even me and my path. Well, I've always been pretty spiritual and open to a lot of things. So words like meditation never freaked me out. But some people that are like in the business world, and they're, whatever, certain words can be triggering for people. That's another thing I talk about a lot here, because you hear the word meditation and they're like, I'm not a hippy dippy. I'm not like, I don't have candles and crystals all over my house. Well, ironically, the thing that's funny is the more you adapt and understand what meditation can be, people call it lots of different things, you just kind of naturally step into things that you don't expect you're going to step into.
Right. And also, like, manifestation can be a prayer. It's just whoever you're talking to, right? Like,
exactly.
You can call it whatever you want to call it. It can be God. It can be universe. It can be it's just truly like
be your higher self.
It's just something that is bigger than this physical body that you're in is what you're communicating.
Tapping into. Yeah. Exactly. And you're getting the messages back because you're going within. And it's so powerful, and it makes me, that's why I love talking about the conversations that I talk about here, because it's just so, it's like I was saying this yesterday on somebody else's, I was on not a podcast, on a webinar, and I was saying the more we can embrace and experience the changes, positive changes in our own life that comes to be when we start adopting practices that bring us more peace and joy, and the things that we're after and that make it fill our soul, the more we want to share it with others. It's like, you want to scream it from the rooftops, like, oh my gosh, have you tried this? It's so incredible. And it's not that I'm trying to tell you that I'm so great. It's, you got to do this.
Yeah. Like you will love it.
You got to do this.
Yeah. You will love this new side of you that shows up.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like, you meditating truly doesn't, like, it's nothing, it doesn't benefit me in any personal way, right? It does if I was like around you, right? Yes. Your aura, or whatever you want to say about it. But like, it's for you. And how cool is that to be able to inspire someone for like a truly personal inside of you experience, and like what you get to open with that. And I followed a lot of like, soundbite snippets as much as I can, like try to take in from people talking about this type of thing that I can. And it was just like, your brain whenever you're talking to yourself and your self-talk, your brain knows no difference between what's actually happening to you and what you're actually what you're wanting to happen, right? If you're talking about it all in the same tense,
it doesn't know the difference.
Doesn't know the difference. So talk to yourself in this best self tense, right? And also like that's a kind of, it takes practice to get in there. And then you're like, oh, but what if? And then be like, okay, what if? And let's stay with that for a second. But like, let's go. Like, let it go and talk to yourself as if infinite possibilities are there, because it's truly there.
Yeah, I know.
It's amazing.
One of the things that I've learned too, and this has been a huge tool for me to understanding it, is when I have an emotion that feels negative, like I'm afraid or I'm mad or I'm whatever, insert emotion here. And I'm like, I used to feel like, don't do that. Stay positive. It's okay. Like, don't do that. Instead, it's like, no, actually, just like in your mind, let it in because you need to experience whatever that emotion is for you at that moment. The coolest part is the more that you do that, the easier and quicker it actually releases from you and you no longer have it. And now you're in a whole nother state of being and understanding of, oh, I don't have to fester there. I do need to let it in. I need to welcome it because it's trying to tell me something, that whatever's happening is making me feel a certain way because I need to learn something from this. So once I can say, like I had this moment this morning, I was like super emotional and afraid. I was having major fear. And I thought, okay, and normally Tammy would say, oh, well, you don't need to be afraid. Come on, you know that you're okay and everything's fine and blah, 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 rainbows and butterflies. And then I was like, no, I am freaking afraid. I am scared. And it's okay, Tammy, like look at this for a second because you're afraid. It's okay to be afraid. Look at it. And so as soon as I started really looking at it and realized that's what was really happening, all of a sudden I was like, okay, now it kind of started to just like evaporate because I could see that it was there. And as soon as I acknowledged it, it said, thank you for acknowledging me. And now I can go. And it's like the whole meditation completely turned around right when I had that acknowledgement. So as soon as you let that emotion, and it's not even a meditation, it's any time of the day. But what's cool when you do it and you're in true deep connection and trance in yourself through meditation or prayer or whatever you want to call it, when you are in a conscious conversation out in the world, those moments come and you can so much more easily recognize that's what's going on in that moment. And it can alleviate so much quicker versus trigger you onto a crappy day and lead to the next thing and the next bad decision and the next judgment, next bad self-talk, all those things. The more you do it focused that way, it happens less and less in your daily life.
Totally.
And that's where it's helpful to all of us. When you do that for yourself, you have to choose to do that. Like you said, choose to do it for yourself, because as soon as you start doing it for yourself, and by the way, you doing it for yourself does affect everybody else. 100%. Doesn't even matter where you are. It affects everyone, all souls, all the time. So choosing you is always the best bet.
Oh yeah. It's amazing. It truly is just like when you can just start to tap into that side of you, you also can see, like, now that I feel like I'm aware of some of like the thoughts and like, oh, that used to trigger this. And then I can like see myself not being triggered by it anymore. I'm like, oh, I guess that's what growth is. Like,
isn't that interesting?
Like, that's wild. Normally I would have jumped all over that. And I'm like, okay, you are evolving.
Yes.
That is crazy.
That's what I've said too. Yeah. Eric's been like,
yeah,
you don't upset by that? And I'm like, no, I'm okay, good. And he's like, and I started saying it myself first, but when somebody outside, and not just him, a lot of people that know me are like, you're different. And I'm like, I feel different. Things affect me differently. I don't let things affect me.
Right.
Because I'm the only one in control. That's truly the only thing I have control of is how I respond to anything outside of me.
Right.
Can't control anything out there.
Right.
So let's focus right here.
Right. It's like the difference between effect and affect. Right. And like you stop letting everything affect you and you just start affecting how you respond after. And you're like,
that's good. I like that.
It's very different. Right. I remember learning the difference of the two words in like school. And you're like, oh, those are hilarious that they're so close in.
They're an oxymoron.
Spelling, right? And how you say it, but like they mean very different things.
For sure. I hadn't put that together. That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Effect. That's good.
You can
use
a
good nugget.
Yeah. You can use it. Feel free.
So in your infinite wisdom and the things that you have done and will continue to do, what advice would you give to people out there that will gravitate to this, which probably include entrepreneurs, people that are very driven, that want to achieve what they might consider to be success in whatever form that looks like for them. but they can get trapped because you have truly been living this, whether you're aware of it or not, your whole life. That's why your energy is so infectious. And there's people you meet in your life. Let's go back to what I said in the very beginning. There's people you come across and you just see their light immediately. And you're like, oh, there's something over there that I really like. It's an attraction. It's like a beacon, right? Mm-hmm. So you've been living it. But for people that really do get stuck, because we all get stuck. We're human, we get stuck. So what advice would you give people that are truly trying to live that way of peace and manifestation and just trusting and letting go? What's the one bit of wisdom that you've experienced that you can help people with?
I mean, God, there's so much in there. I would definitely say spending all the time to work on you, because everything gets better once you start doing that, right? Spending time with you and releasing the things that you've carried with you, didn't know you were carrying with you. I don't know. I feel like I'm there's so much pressure in this, but there also isn't, right? There's freedom and
just
there's so much
truth.
with it. I would say being open. So I am fairly steadfast and stubborn in some of the things that I think that I want. And so I will in my meditation or in my manifestation say we've talked about it. We'll say Bloomingdale's for this. Thank you so much for Bloomingdale's. I'm so happy to be in stores. And then I was but what if there's something bigger than Bloomingdale's? And I have just stopped myself from it. And so I've come,
this big.
I don't know how to articulate what I'm saying in advice. Okay. But it is more of once you've freed yourself from anything that could hold you back that you've done to yourself, right? What you thought or you've experienced. And you're ready for what the universe has for you. And you say I am so grateful for what you have in store for me and for whatever store I get placed into next, right? And
don't limit yourself.
Correct. And I realized that I was limiting myself with what I thought was best for me instead of letting the universe take over what was best for me.
That's huge.
Okay. Did I articulate it enough?
Yes,
okay.
That makes a ton of sense. And I think there's a lot of, that is so true, because we even in our wildest expectations, you're oh, I'm going to manifest fill in the blank. And you're that's so crazy, but you kind of laugh and you chuckle. You're but anything's possible, right?
Right.
But even that, you are truly limiting yourself by putting a name to whatever it is. I'm not saying you can't name what it is you're after, because you can.
Right.
But there could be more.
Right.
So maybe just let that come to you. Maybe manifest the feeling that comes with whatever the best thing there is that you don't even know exists.
Right.
Think about that feeling.
Giving up the control of what you think is best.
Yes.
And that's a really hard thing for me to do. But it was if I could process that level feels safe, and I know I can handle it.
That's realistic.
Right? That's my realistic manifestation. It's cute. It's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm but there's so many other things out there that you don't even know are possible, but you're not even letting yourself get there. Mm-hmm. You're not letting the universe even deliver it because you've capped yourself.
Exactly. You capped yourself.
Yeah. So I feel the freedom of letting the listen to the universe too. Right?
Yes.
Feel the freedom of infinite possibility. Don't cap yourself.
Yeah, that's the word, infinite, because we are infinite beings, and anything we have ever can have, and actually already do have, is infinite. So when you cap it, why would you do that?
Totally. It took a minute for me to be able to articulate that, but I think that's what I'm going through in real time. So it was I don't even know how to say this, but
that makes so much sense. I totally agree with you. And that is how I truly try to live, because it's I can wish all I want for all the things that I want, but I don't even really know all I know I want is I just want to feel happy.
Correct.
And I want to feel the best.
Right.
And I want to love myself, and I want to feel free, and it's the feelings I have behind whatever that thing is, or the event, or getting to that, whatever. It's not even about that. It's how do I want to be?
Totally.
How do I want to feel?
Right.
So that's really good advice. And I totally agree. So don't cap yourselves, people.
No,
don't do it.
You got this. The world's your oyster.
Exactly.
LFG.
So how can people find you and engage with, obviously, your amazing, I guess it's just, is it nakedrebellion.com?
Is the website, yeah. And then socials are naked.rebellion for the brand. which is fun. And I'm there all the time. And, we're
Yeah,
growing
go
and
see
it's
her.
exciting. Please, come see me at the store as well. You can shop in person.
Yeah, if you're here locally.
Yeah, if you're in Phoenix or if you travel in, come see us. And then, I'm sure my own personal social is on there too, but it's just Wenger McPhaul. But you can interact on the brand and you'll definitely find me on there too. And I'm a part of an entrepreneurs group called The Founders, and we meet here in Phoenix as well. And that's an incredible area for both personal and business growth, and the changes that that business has had itself. The Founders is amazing, and you can find me anywhere.
Yeah,
I'm everywhere.
And you are one of the most, like I said, approachable, real, normal people. Meaning that you're just very approachable, and you're a soft, open heart that you can feel. I felt that from the very second I met you. It's funny because we met through two different people. Mm-hmm. First, Lindsay had mentioned you, and then it was funny. We had that fated dinner with with Katie and Andy Mans, which was so cool. I was like, oh my gosh, of course, no accidents, right?
None.
That was so weird. Do you remember that dinner?
It was very weird.
I mean, I was like, we were supposed to get together, and then Katie's like, oh yeah, we're going out with Jess, but you're supposed to, I said, what? Yeah. And then all of a sudden we're all having dinner together.
Yeah, we were supposed to meet like a few weeks later, and then we ran at a dinner, and again, divine timing.
Exactly. It wasn't up to us. We were supposed to meet sooner, so we did. So
I love it.
Anyway, I'm grateful to you. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for all the beauty you bring into the world. And thank you for just being an open soul who understands and gets what this is all about, because it does matter to everyone.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And maybe one more thing that I would say in that and on the tone of what you just said is like, when you fill your thoughts and your days and your mornings with gratitude, there's no room for anything else, right? Like the second you've got some of those negative thoughts coming in, if you can just fill it with things you're grateful for, like the air conditioning in the room, it can be super simple. You take away space for anything that's negative and not for you. And so like, I'm so grateful for you and for creating that environment and being able to speak about the things that I love so much. Like, how lucky am I? Like, I'm so grateful. So thank you for this and speaking your truth and helping all the people out there listening.
Oh, well, it's what I know I'm here to do. So I'm happy to do it. It's actually for me.
Yeah.
That's
finally, yay.
I'm choosing it for me. And that's why it happens to benefit others, because I'm choosing me around this. It makes me feel good.
I love it.
So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you all for joining us today. I hope you got a lot out of our conversation. I know I did. I always do with this one. So please be sure to subscribe. We are on YouTube, and we are on social networks as well at Tammy Tuesday Life. You can also find more information, including my blog at tammytuesday.com. Always leaving you with lots of love and light. And remember, life, love, and purpose, it all begins with you. Peace out.